They've got potentially 100,000 dirhams on the table. They've got a chance that they're going to leave with nothing. If this all finishes off here and it does not go any further and the deal does not happen, you get paid zero. Got a text message from an owner saying that, look, I'm looking to sell the property. What I didn't know in that moment is that message that I received was a broadcast message. So he had sent it out to a number of agents. I'm right in the middle of a viewing at the moment. There's no way that I can actually get to this message right now. Finish the viewing and I get a call. And here in Dubai, especially if you're working in real estate, and most companies will divide rental agents and the sales agents. The rental agents, they will do really well if they refer a sale property to one of the sales guys. And I got a call from one of the rental agents, and she said, I've got someone that wants to sell a 4-bedroom property. It was the same property that the owner had messaged me directly. I've already lost 25% of the potential billables just for that. It was maybe half an hour. Half an hour, that's literally all it was. She put it in the system first, and then that was it. I had a client that was absolutely perfect for this property. In fact, 2 clients that would be absolutely ideal for this property. I mean, it was a larger plot. It basically ticked all of the boxes for both clients. Now, one thing that we do, when I say we do, I mean I do. I mean, good practice is to understand all of the circumstances to do with, especially if you've got a tenant in a property, you have to understand by what methodology was a notice served, how it was served, and when it was served. And you need to see the corresponding paperwork to make sure that whatever you're representing to a buyer is correct. Otherwise, you end up with a situation where you say something that's not correct, and you can't be left in that situation. Law 33 of 2008 basically stipulates in section 25, I believe, that if you want to evict a tenant, a notice has to be served via the public notary, or the second option would be to send an eviction via registered mail. Now, normal procedure would be to go to the notary. They would, in fact, even before going into the notary, you would have a typing office, which is literally located outside, draft everything, you give them all the paperwork, they draft everything, you go into the notary. As soon as you go into the notary, they stamp it, and then they send it directly to the courier, which is Aramex. That is the known way of serving a notice. Now, it's one of these situations where people believe what they're told. You know, if people have experiences where 100 people are served a notice via the notary public, and then one guy is served a notice via registered mail, you know, some people would call it into question. Is it an actual notice? Is it something that would stand up in court? Organised 2 viewings on this property. It's a direct deal, both sides. I've got the buyer, I've got the seller, done the viewings, both of them really liked it. I went over to the tenant at the end of the viewing and I said, look, I understand that you guys are looking to move, and he was shocked. I was thinking, in my head, I was like, he hasn't packed anything, and now he's looking shocked. And I'm thinking, okay, all this hard work for nothing, potentially. Remember, those 2 clients that I had that were hot, that wasn't the first property that I'd shown them. We'd been speaking for several weeks. We'd been out on different viewings, having a look, seeing which properties work. And this one, of course, would be ideal. And I thought I had this one in the bag. It turns out the tenant had been to the RDC. The RDC basically look at rental disputes. And a case had been put forward to the RDC. And apparently the landlord had lost a case in the RDC. So the judge has decided that the tenants could stay. At this point, I had an offer. In fact, I had 2 offers. Both people were happy to proceed. Like small details in terms of what had to be negotiated. The offers were both in line with what the buyer and seller were happy with. So that was sorted. The only problem is that both of these buyers are relying on this tenant leaving. I've gone through all of the details with the tenant, tried to understand where he was coming from. Of course, you know, this is a human being. So you have to be empathetic to, they're living in the property, They've rented that property for a number of years. You have to stay neutral in these situations and just understand where everyone is. And I was a bit unsure of what to do. So anyway, he's come back to me, the landlord, and he said, look, Luqman, we want to get this deal done. You got the price that I want to go at, and I'm happy to proceed at. Let's try and see if we can make this work. I suggested I should have another conversation with the tenant to try and mediate the situation, to try and remedy, come to maybe a mutual understanding. And what I suggested was, how about if you help with the moving costs? Let's say you offer 30, 50, 100,000 dirhams. Like, you're getting a good price, yeah, and you bought the property a while back and you've made a substantial amount of money from the time of purchase. He agreed. Realistically, the landlord is well within his right to evict the tenant. The next step would be for him to take it to court. So you've got the RDC and then you've got the court. Court case is going to cost X to set up. Why don't we just offer him that money or offer him something substantial just so we can get this deal across the line? So he's agreed, met the guy. I remember we went to Tim Hortons. Conversation is going really well. He's understanding both sides of the story. He understands that the landlord wants to get out of the property and he's happy with, the return on investments. And he understands that he has been served a notice and the intentions were there. I've left, jumped in the car, headed over towards the petrol station in Dubai Hills. I remember I needed to fill up fuel. And I was thinking, yeah, we've got it done. I reckon maximum exposure on this is 100,000 dirhams. So we're literally offering him 100,000 dirhams to leave the property, yeah, where he has really no right to stay at the property. Crazy. Straight on to the seller. I said, look, I've had a great meeting with him. I need to understand what the numbers, how it could work. He said he's going to go and speak to his wife to confirm exactly what number could realistically make this work. So he's obviously got some good news. Then I have a call waiting and it's from the tenant. So I said, okay, I said to the landlord, look, I'll give you a call back. The tenant's just calling me. Answered the phone. The long and short of it was he'd spoken to his wife and they've decided that under no circumstances was it the right time for them to move. They've got potentially 100,000 dirhams on the table. They've got a chance that they're going to leave with nothing. And I was shocked. I mean, I've been through so many of these situations where you have disputes between tenants and landlords, and you want to stay as neutral as possible because at the end of the day, it's not something that you've been introduced into a current situation that's moving and evolving. You don't know all the ins and outs of how that works. And the only thing we can do as brokers is, go by the letter of the law and the exact facts of the situation. So anyway, he's rejected the offer. Seller said, look, Luqman, don't worry. Let's get this price for the property, get the terms agreed. And essentially what I'll do is I will, speak to a lawyer, get legal representation. And in the 3 months or so that it's going to take for the mortgage to get approved and go through those relevant steps, what we'll do is we'll make sure that the tenant leaves. So I've gone back to the buyer with great news. And bear in mind, this is a person, right? In fact, husband and wife, this is their first property in Dubai. They have another option which is cheaper, but they really love this option because it's a larger plot. They're putting it all on the line. They're renting at the moment. If this does not happen for any reason, they have to start from zero. And realistically, who are they going to look at being responsible? So, of course, I have to make sure everything's looked after. He's going to go to court. He's going to try and resolve this. The property terms stipulate that this deal is subject to the tenant being evicted and out of the property. Contract signed. So this is a micro win. You got something out of it, and in fact you got nothing out of it, but you've got something for yourself. Okay, I've got it agreed. I've got terms agreed. Now we've got to work out how this tenant situation is going to work. So now he's initiated this lawyer. I can leave this to the lawyer. I don't know how competent these guys are. I've not had any direct experience with these lawyers, but you got to think that they're going to do a good job. I'm not that character to leave anything to chance. I want to understand all of the details. Like I said, when I was going through my due diligence, making sure that the tenant was leaving. It would have been easy to sign a contract and say, the owner told me X, Y, and Z, but I want to hear it from the person that is leaving to understand this thing is actually going to happen. I asked him for all of his WhatsApp communication with the tenant. It was so tedious to go through all their WhatsApp conversations, but I read absolutely every message from the landlord and the tenant to make sure I completely understood the dynamic of that relationship. During the pandemic, that whole period of time, lots of people's jobs were called into question, and it turns out that this guy's wife had a situation with his work, with her work. And they needed some extra time for a few payments. I saw it as it was unfolding on the WhatsApps, and the landlord was really understanding. I read it firsthand. I literally got on the phone to him and I said, "You've been so nice, and they've turned around and done this." Firstly, he was shocked because I don't think that he believed that I was going to actually read through every single message. It was 200 pages. I've compiled everything into key points that we should be understanding that could be relevant in helping the case. I've sent it over, highlighted everything digitally so it can go to the lawyers. Fast forward several months. This was an absolute pain. And the problem is, when you're selling a property to anyone that's buying with a mortgage, there's a set period of time in which your pre-approval is valid for. If you do a valuation on that property, that's only valid for a certain period of time. So the buyer in the meantime is being very, very patient, but I could tell is getting to a tipping point where, are we actually going to get this deal done? We've extended the contract because already it's taken far too long, longer than it's expected. If we lose the deal, of course, the buyer and his wife are not going to be amazingly impressed. And of course, if we get the deal done, it's going to be an amazing success, especially considering everything that's happened. Now, as a broker, one thing I want to articulate and get across is, if this all finishes off here and it does not go any further and the deal does not happen, you get paid zero. Reading 200 pages of WhatsApps and viewings and out in the sun, doesn't matter. You're getting paid nothing. So you're all in. Remember, I'm not leaving this to chance. I'm doing everything in my power, but right now it's court case, appeal, chances for both to appeal, another hearing, a third hearing. It is mind-boggling. We won the case. And as you can imagine, I'm ecstatic. I'm thinking, we're getting this done. The tenant has a period of time in which they have to move out of the property. I'm still thinking, is this actually going to happen? By which time pre-approval was expired, had to arrange absolutely everything. It was a tedious thing to get set up, but tenant was gone. They'd left the property. I heard they'd left the country. I'm not sure if that was entirely true. Not only did they lose the opportunity to take that money as goodwill gesture, up to maybe 100,000 dirhams, they also are liable for some of the costs to do with the court case. That is a big loss. That's a big loss. And they got to move. Got the transfer done. Property's transferred. Through this whole story, the main thing to understand from it is, number one is nothing is guaranteed. Of course, the win tastes so much sweeter after you've done that hard work, but nothing is guaranteed. And it's being detail orientated. You have to understand all the factors in the whole scenario to make sure that you're prepared. Being involved in so many deals makes you more experienced. You're able to preempt any problems and you're able to deal with things more effectively. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story. Take care.